All right. I don't know what this signal means to people in my conspiracy realm, but it probably meant something, so I shouldn't do any kind of symbols. We are live here on Twitter and YouTube. This is the Not a Podcast show. I am not a podcast host. My name is Sean Ongley. And the reason I don't call it a podcast, I want to just kind of explain that because I decided that would be the title of the show because it's not a podcast. And like really want to differentiate that. I'm kind of a podcast purist. You know, I shout out to Adam Curry in the morning, my friends. Like this is a thing that's a no agenda reference. So, you know, it's a live stream. And I'm happy to have today's guest. He's a very funny fella. I listened to the podcast that he's on called Cash Daddies, and he's a comedian in LA. And I want to talk about how he has invested in himself to keep himself moving in this rough and tumble market that is entertainment. His name's Chris Neff. How you doing, Chris?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. A little cloudy, a little bit kind of like dreary day, but it's not sunny in Philadelphia today.
I've never seen that show, by the way.
It annoys me. It's exactly the kind of humor that I can't handle.
I rarely watch any comedy, and everybody's told me it's genius for years. And I just tell people it's on my list, but I know I'll never watch it.
Having lived now in Philly, there's insight that I have about why it's such an insane set of characters. I get it now.
Oh, yeah. And I know all the stories about the crack baby and episodes people reference all the time. And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. So after a while, I just started playing along and pretending like I know what's going on.
That's a good way to live.
Yeah. Until you get caught in a lie.
Yeah. So, okay. I like to do this at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Where can people find you?
They can go to Chris Neff Comedy on Twitter. They can go to Horsetooth on Instagram. I no longer have a website, which is probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And then if you want to go boom out, you can go to Facebook and find me under Chris Neff. And then, of course, you can catch Cash Daddies every week, Wednesday on YouTube or all the usual pod downloads places, Apple, wherever, Spotify, Stitcher, you know the drill.
That's where I found you. I've been a Sam Tripoli follower for a little while.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you should. I even I was on his Patreon a couple times. Even you should say hi for me.
Okay, I can do that.
I wonder if he thinks I'm a spook. He must be just swarmed by spooks all the time.
Is that a reference that I should know?
Do you know what a spook is? Oh, okay.
I mean,
well,
in the racist proverbial sense, yes, but not in the internet nerd sense. I'm not calling you a nerd.
Well, that's fine. I'm all kinds of things. I'm kind of a hipster doofus. My first recollection of hearing that term was like a few years ago by my Marine cousin, who referred to agents. People who they become assets, intelligence agency assets. So you could have people, especially in places like LA, every two out of 10 people are probably a spook. But anyway, so you're in LA. Where are you from?
Well, I'm actually in Long Beach. I was in LA for 20 years, and now I'm south. I grew up in Long Beach.
This Long Beach County.
It's LA County. It's
LA
right
County.
on the border of Orange County. So you have Long Beach, and then you have the San Gabriel River, and then you're in Seal Beach, which is Orange County. So yeah, I've been down here for about 4 years. Before that, I was in LA. I was in LA since '98, and then before that, New York City, and then I was born and raised in Idaho, Boise specifically.
Boise. Yeah, I did a lot of time in Portland, Oregon. How much did you spend?
A lot.
Yeah,
and I used to go a lot. It's a great comedy town as well.
Oh God, yeah. I did comedy there a little bit. Wonderful time that I had while I was there. It was a very special moment of creative people. but we won't talk. I talked about that with Christian Ricketts quite a lot. He was from that scene a few episodes back, so you guys can reference that if you want to talk about that. But so okay, so you ended up in L.A. in New York first, chasing the dream.
Yeah, well, I had to go to college to spend $100,000 to chase the dream. So I had
$100,000.
yeah, for an acting degree.
Wow.
It's kind of yeah. I'm still paying it off. Almost done.
That's 90s money or
Yeah,
2000s money?
That's 93 to 97 money. I'm 46.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was in junior and high school at that time. So I'm like, we've got less than 10 years, but close to 10 years apart. Is that about right?
Yeah.
We're older guys now, both of us.
I know I don't look 46, so that's all that matters to me.
I think I'm accepting. I look 40, but I look all right.
You look great.
Thank you. You look great too.
Thank you.
So you chased an acting degree straight out of Boise.
Yeah.
Were you rocking it in Boise? Were things
Oh, yeah.
just yeah.
Yeah. No, I started off, I transitioned from the sports guy in, sophomore year to the theater nerd guy and got really into theater. And then, knew I wasn't going to get any sort of baseball scholarship or anything like that because I quit in my junior year. And then, fell in love with acting and just the theater world in general.
All right. But in high school, are theater kids getting weird? Are theater kids getting freaky?
Not at my high school. It wasn't very cliquey. We were cool, but I crossed over into many different worlds in my high school, so I didn't feel like an outcast in that regard.
Okay, well, I just hear a lot of rumors that the freakiest kids are the ones in theater. They seem like nerds, but really, they're doing drugs. They're fucking each other.
Oh, we did a lot of drugs and fucking. So,
okay, that was the point of the whole thing.
And there's nerds in every subgroup in high school. There were certainly some weirdos in theater, and but I felt, who knows, maybe I am a nerd and I'm in denial. So I felt at home with those people, and I always have.
Well, you just tempted the constantly running gag about what you're in denial about. Which I want to touch on that real quick.
Sure.
Because I want to just give you, well, I'm glad that you changed the direction of that. Like on Cash Daddies, they were just getting out of control with the trans jokes. Out of control.
Well, here's the thing. We're comedians and we commit to runners. And, after a while, you just go with it.
Yeah. But, I think it was smart of you to go with like changing the direction on that, I think. Because I'm going to discover why it's an act that you are like the butt of every joke and the loser or whatever this persona that you're putting out there on the Cash Daddies that they love to fuel.
Yeah, well, that's interesting you bring that up because a lot of people didn't understand that, and it's a commitment to the bit, and it is essentially a straight man character. And I have no problem doing it. It's fun.
I couldn't do it.
Oh,
but
really?
At some point, it's too. Yeah, I mean, at some point, it's too much, right? You're just taking too much abuse.
Well, and we did recognize that, and we did tone it down. So, very, very perceptive of you to notice that.
I think a lot of folks probably noticed that. Some probably were disappointed.
You'd be surprised. I get a lot of personal DMs about the assumption that I'm a transsexual or a transvestite. It would be a transsexual, and that a lot of people really believe that I was having trouble accepting my sexuality and transitioning.
People are obsessed. They're obsessed with it. Like,
I don't know if I'd say they're obsessed, but there were definitely some people that were concerned and sent me some DMs. Yeah. Some of them said to pray. Some of them made it clear it's not a natural act. And then I had a lot of supporters.
That's what I mean. They are obsessed. Like these have got to be people that are there. It's not just you that they're targeting. Like, oh, this poor soul. Why better save them from this transitioning? Like they're obsessed. So they're seeing it everywhere. Like, I don't know. I mean, I I try not to get into it too much.
No,
It's not.
it's totally fine to get into it because it's something that I think I found very interesting in that a lot of people couldn't differentiate the comedy or the bit from reality because maybe we're playing it too consistently or too accurate. I don't know. But if there are any concerns out there, I am heterosexual and I don't have any desire to transition, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Are you exaggerating your size on the show? Because you've
No,
no. Okay, all right.
no, and that's just because I literally need to constantly one up Sam and his 6-inch hammer.
Right.
And by the
His
way,
average male hammer. It's a good, solid, working tool.
yeah,
Obviously.
yeah,
I
and
think
it's
no.
and it's not like I'm walking out there saying I have a 10-inch fucking dick. I think
Right.
I think what I put out there is normal.
Okay. So also, you're being consistent with the sort of masculinity on the show, Cash Daddies. You're like Wall Street's like a boys' club traditionally, and there's more and more women, and you guys feature a lot of women
Yeah.
on the show. And not just you only had like one OnlyFans that I can remember. I don't listen to or watch every show,
Right.
but I've been drawing down my podcast listening a lot as my life gets busier, But it's nice to have time to like, I don't know, when I'm working with my hands, I can really listen to podcasts all day. Anyway, this is not about my podcast listening habit. We are catching back up to just that was a little side road. I called this episode Investing in Yourself with Chris Neff because I think that what you've done this is just my hunch because I haven't been following your life or career, but I'm guessing that you've survived in LA by investing in yourself, by making a few shrewd moves here and there and keeping yourself moving. Is that a good way to put it? You're a professional comic. You own your home in Long Beach, and you have some stocks and retirement plan. Right?
That's accurate. Although I do not make the majority of my money through stand-up or acting. I did in my 20s, in my early 20s, but I've never been able to fully support myself to the means that I want to live just by being an entertainer. So I do have side projects, a small business that I own, there's no way to live comfortably in this town unless you're making, I don't know, $125,000, $150,000. And I certainly haven't made that doing stand up or acting. I had some good years in the early 2000s. As far as the most, I'm trying to think about the biggest job I ever made. It was definitely commercial work. Back in the day, if you hit a national commercial, you'd make 50 grand. And I had a couple of those that were, with some major companies like Pepsi, people like that. So those were good gigs, but those days are gone now. And not just for me, but for everybody. You can't go out and make that kind of money anymore. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, there's still some like celebrities who their entire careers are based on being in a commercial. AT&T girl, Progressive girl, Jared from Subway.
Yeah. You know what?
He had to come back, but for bad reasons.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that is when you get that type of job, if you have a smart agent, they will negotiate a contract for you. I forget what the clause is, but it basically says this brand is so big and this character I'm playing is so big, it's going to cause me future detriment to get cast in a legitimate project like a movie or a show.
You're ruining your life.
Correct. So therefore you need to pay me more.
Hella more.
So
you're ruining your life.
Yeah.
I mean, God, it's got to be the worst thing being these famous from commercials. It's got to be the worst because everybody sees that, and they all have the tagline, "Oh, that's got to be hell." But
yeah,
you got it. But you get that contract, you get that money.
Yeah,
Make
that's
it work
the trade-off.
Early retirement.
you get that big paycheck. But it would not be easy to be Flo, and walk around in this world and want to be taken as a serious actress, So
Yeah, you can see the pain, especially Flo. Um, yeah, I was, like I relate to, struggling to keep a career going, and I never wanted a real career. Like I was in LA from 2001 to 2003. I studied audio engineering in North Hollywood at a place on Magnolia Boulevard that's now replaced with condominiums. And then I moved to Portland where I wanted to be like an indie musician guy, and then I went to college. Blah blah blah. A lot of winding roads. But in the back of my mind, I'm an entertainer the whole life, and that's what I'm sort of pursuing. And as you see right now, I'm still pursuing that. There's been a lot of successes and complete implosions.
yeah.
So, I guess how am I like you? I went ahead and bought my house a few years ago, and that's like the stable point. Even though last year I had an insane moratorium problem, it's been a stable thing for me because I rent rooms. Do you rent rooms? Is that part of your?
Oh God, no.
Yeah. It's smart if you can avoid it.
Yeah, no, I'm lucky in the sense that I've never had to have a roommate in the home that I own. In fact, my running joke is that I live alone in a 4-bedroom house, and all 3 of my cats have their own room.
It's true, isn't it?
It is true. It is true.
You must do something with those rooms, though.
Yeah, I've constantly vacuumed them. So
they're just waiting for guests that never come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
That's actually one reason I filled the room. It was just like, first of all, guests weren't coming. I was like telling my friends after moving out here, if you want to come to Philly, you got a place to visit. And and from here it's a launch pad. You can go in a day anywhere. New York, Boston, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. It's a great place to be if you want to visit the entire East Coast.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, so I was like, this is just money wasted. There's no point. But there's a big trade-off to selling your room, selling an extra bedroom. And now I'm like thinking of it as like you can run a business. You run your business out of your house, more or less. I doubt, I don't know what you do, and we're not going to talk about it. But I would imagine that you use your house.
I do.
And that's what I'm thinking is like the most valuable thing to do with a house.
Your listeners are probably going like, this guy totally shoots porn in those 3 extra rooms.
Yeah, I have. This room is soundproof, and I could do any number of things with it. I could use it as an interrogation room. I could use it as a porn studio, music studio, live stream studio. Grow room. I got a lot of power lines in here to accommodate music, so might as well grow marijuana. I bet you when I sell this house, that's what's going to happen to this room. Somebody's going to grow weed in this room.
So what is the law in Pennsylvania? Are you allowed like 12 plants?
If I do a medical, I could totally use this room as a grow room, but
Okay.
I don't. And I don't plan to get a medical. I'm just going to keep blazing black market herb.
Blazing black market herb. I like that. That doesn't. You make it sound like the pot's so good, it's like tar heroin or something.
Well, the heroin's so good. We got the famous K&A. I don't know if you've heard of that street, Kensington and Allegheny.
No.
If you've seen pictures of dope addicts in news stories, you've seen pictures of K&A. It's one of the most widely photographed, and it's just a famous place to come get junk.
My time in Philly is super limited. I have a bunch of friends from there and the Westchester area, and like I said, I can't even remember the last time I was there, and if I was, it wasn't there. I wasn't there for very long, so my experience with Philadelphia is super limited.
Well, hopefully you get out here more. There's definitely good clubs here. I feel like it would be a good Cash Daddies episode if you guys, because Howie's just up there.
Yeah.
He could swing down here. And Sam's always done well. When the couple shows I've seen him here, he does very well.
Helium.
Yeah, Helium and a Punchline.
Okay, cool.
But so I was touching on it earlier. It's just like it's tough. I did an audition once for a Lipton iced tea. I'll just tell you this as an example. I tried it. I was like, oh fuck it, I'll try like acting stuff because people were telling me about the commercial money, and this was
Yeah.
in around 2010, so it was still good. But it was like an online Lipton iced tea gig, and they were really looking for a new, I think, kind of potential celebrity for a whole kind of a series, and I did well in the audition, but they didn't use me. And they invited me back for another audition for a Gus Van Sant film. It was just a couple lines, practically an extra. But they switched up the lines, and now I understand why. They do that to see how on your feet you can be. And they switched up the lines, and I got frustrated, and then they never called me back. And that was it. That was just like one of the only casting studios in Portland, Oregon. And I realized that's exactly how fast your acting career can end
Right.
in any given town that you're in.
I'll say this: every job that I booked in the commercial aspect of the entertainment industry wasn't because I was talented or because I nailed the audition. It was because I looked the part, and my agent gave me great information, gave me prep work to go out and hit thrift stores and find the perfect look, and I know that's why I got cast. It certainly wasn't because I nailed the audition. I really think that in my experience, when you have the agent that does the work and tells you exactly what you need to pull off, you're going to be successful, because so many of them, it's just a numbers game and they're just trying to get people out there. So once I figured that out, I would always go to my agent and say, hey, can you give me a more detailed breakdown of exactly what this part is? Because the old thing was you get the casting call for young, urban, hip, casual. Those were the 4 words. And you'd be like, what the fuck does that mean? Give me more information. What is this person doing in the audition? What is this person doing in the scene? And they'd be like, oh, okay, well, actually, he's going to be a band member from like a 60s pop band. And I'm like, if you told me that, I would have gotten the job, and then you go out and you dress the part. So that's what I learned a long time ago. So I would always dig for my agent and be like, all right, give me the real dirt. What is this part?
I see. So and plus you had all that experience and preparation, training, so that you understand something about the ropes before you get there. And I was like brand new, so it's very easy for someone with no experience and no guidance to just because I think a big thing is they want to make sure you're going to have a good attitude. A good attitude is really important in Hollywood, right?
Absolutely.
They run you through the ringer. It's abusive, but you got to keep that good attitude, keep things moving positive, right?
Yeah, for sure. But getting those jobs doesn't mean you're going to end up in the final product. There's many instances where I booked a national commercial and I got cut out of it. I could also recall a commercial. It was for Bacardi, where all you could see was my hand for like 2 seconds because I got cut. But because at the time the union was such a great union, and SAG-AFTRA's had its problems over the last 10, 15 years, but I was still able to make 20 grand for just seeing my hand. So
Nice.
The main thing is you got to get it, the job.
Yeah. And if the other thing is rent control, if in a place like LA, at least if you can get in and stay in someplace.
Yeah.
Like I had friends in Los Feliz. I got a friend there. I think he's still there. He's been there 20 years in this apartment. He's in a position where at any time he could get a payout for $10,000-$20,000 from the building owner,
Right.
to move out.
Right.
As soon as he wants to do that, he's got it. And that's just something he negotiates privately.
Yeah, I was really lucky in that I never had any situations where I had one of those scumbag landlords that was like, "Hey, your rent's going up $200." I never dealt with that, so I feel really lucky in that regard.
Yeah, I guess sometimes there is rent control, but sometimes you just don't want to fight the landlord who's just trying to boot you out.
Yeah, but I do have the horror stories of friends that went through that kind of crap. So
Yeah. It's LA. I mean, I look forward to coming back. How's it looking these days?
it's World War III. I'd wait a little bit. Um, I think I was talking to Sam about this recently. My old neighborhood is referred to as Sunset La Brea. It's a major intersection in the heart of Hollywood. And I hadn't been up there for about maybe 9 months. And I went up there, and my old neighborhood looked like Skid Row, which is downtown LA and, 10, 15 miles away. And it was really sad. You got people openly smoking meth on the streets and having sex, and and not only that, the violence. I mean, it's the the problem is you have these people that can't go anywhere, that don't have resources to be taken care of, so they were building a lot of shanties, and you put drugs, alcohol, depression, and economic strife in those situations. It's like a time bomb. So my old neighborhood, which I considered very safe, was not a neighborhood that I would feel comfortable walking, to this corner store to go buy, a soda after midnight. And that's really sad, but that's kind of what it has deteriorated to.
And I guess this is like a crossover topic. I don't want to go too. I don't know. It's like it's almost a conspiracy, but it's just free market, really. That the rents can keep going up, property values keep going up, yet the quality of living keeps going down in
Yeah.
LA, San
Yeah.
Francisco, Portland, Oregon, uh, especially San Francisco and LA.
Yeah.
So what is that? Is it like, I mean, what I understand about it is it's the ability for banks and wealthy internationals to simply buy property and sit on it because they are so rich, they just need a storage of value. And they have already bought Bitcoin and gold, so they need yet more storages of value.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about the Bay Area specifically, it's also the new rich money. I mean, if you look at like the Ubers and all of those startups, I can't remember where I read it, but I want to say it was like when a lot like Uber went public or whatever. I want to say they instantly created like 1,000 millionaires. Don't you'll have to Google that and check those numbers. But those people immediately had money, and they had the ability to go in and buy property, especially in the San Francisco proper, and just cut out these people that had been living there for years. So, and San Jose is the richest market in the country. So you have all that money, people want to spend it, and they want to live in the nicest place or coolest place possible. So that's really hurt that area. And then LA, I mean, there's so much money in Los Angeles, because of the TV and film industry. So I think that's the answer that I have. Now, if it's going to stay up, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people saying that housing's going to crash, but I've been hearing that for 4 years. And I bought in 2018, and people are like, "Dude, you're buying at the top. You're insane." And now my home value is up 60% from when I bought it. So I'm long on real estate. I tell everybody, I don't think there's ever a bad time to buy real estate, especially if you're going to make a 5 to 10 year commitment. Now, that's not to say we couldn't have another 2008. And everybody likes to say this time is different, as a coping mechanism, or as like confirmation bias, if that's the right term to buy. But it is different because 2008 was, a Ponzi scheme that was basically controlled by, big banks that knew they would get bailed out if there was ever a problem. So the lending restrictions that are in place are nowhere as dangerous as they used to be. Now, that doesn't, factor in this runaway inflation that we're having, which will definitely blow up in our faces at some point. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt we're headed for a recession. So
We're in it. It feels like we're in it. Yeah, feels like we're in it. It's a weird thing. It's a weird collection of things.
yeah, people keep saying, do you think there's a recession coming in 2023? And my response is, we're already in one. Where have you been?
Yeah, it's. I think people who don't play stocks, they feel it later, and people who play stocks, they see it already, so they know. Um, you don't have to have a lot of stocks to feel it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when did you get your first stock?
My first stock, oh, probably in my 20s, because I started investing in my mid 20s. I had a pay the bills job, a sales job, so I could do comedy at night and audition during the day. And I just started putting money into a 401k. So
Interesting. A 401k. You opened your own 401k?
No, it's through a company I
Oh,
worked
through the
with.
job. Excuse me. Duh.
Yeah. So, and I maxed it out. I would always put the maximum in for the match. So that was one of the smartest things I ever did. The dumbest thing I ever did, though, was not pay attention to what they were putting my money into. And that's a lot of the reason why we kind of, started Cash Daddies, is that there were a lot of people like me in my, in their 20s now, or in their, 30s now, that take that money, put it in, and don't manage anything, and realize that they're not investing optimally for the long term, because they're used to just answering a 20-page questionnaire about risk assessment and risk comfortability. And then whoever runs that fund, puts you in the algorithm, and then puts you in bonds, stocks, equities, whatever. And you don't really know what's there. So the idea of Cash Daddies is take control of your financial life by removing the fear that I think most people have, that this is too difficult for me to do. And it's not the case.
Yeah, it's the easiest it's ever been. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. You have fractional share fee-free trading.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like, there's no excuse not to throw something in there. And I think that some people have, like, I have had a very anti-capitalist attitude for a long time. I'm not really feeling that anymore. I guess I'm more libertarian in a lot of ways. I've always been a civil libertarian, believing in individual civil liberties. But now I'm definitely less trustworthy of the government to run programs and tax me and use that money for anything that is worthwhile. So, I definitely am not a total 100% anarchist, more of a decentralist. And I would love to see less of this madness that is driven by government. Now, what's my point? I'm less of an anti-capitalist, so I'm more willing to play in the different, participate in different markets, including stock markets. I had a whole problem. Now I realize, like, how it's part of our democracy. If more people owned fewer stocks, then fewer people owning more stocks, then there would be more leverage in the hands of the average person, because it is still like usually one share, one vote with most companies. So the people can own Coca-Cola. They can't if they bought one less 6-pack of Coca-Cola a week and then bought stocks, would the stock drop in value? That's an interesting. Like, in other words, if you devoted that money that you like, there's like a rap song that I heard like 20 years ago. It's probably become a trope. But if the people that love to create the image of wealth, that don't really have money, if they put that money into the companies that they spend money on in the form of stocks instead of buying their products, they'd be richer. But the problem with that is, if nobody's consuming, they're all investing. If everybody consumed like me, all the stocks would go down. That's
I think what you're describing to a degree is the phenomenon we saw with the meme stock movement, and specifically GameStop and AMC. I mean, if you look at this, you're able to see that the people that jumped into this were able to cause enormous amounts of damage to some one of the largest hedge funds on Wall Street. So there is something to be said for this new generation that discovered finance, and it would only have been possible with COVID because they had so much time to sit around because they weren't working, they were receiving stimulus checks, and they took up the time to learn how the stock market works. Now, I'm not a proponent of the meme stocks. I'm very vocal about this in the sense that I believe that both GameStop and AMC have already squoze, which is a word, and we've debated this many times on the podcast. But when you have a stock that is trading for $4, I'm speaking of GameStop, and then it moves to $360, that is the squeeze. Same thing with AMC. When you have a stock that's trading for $3 and it makes its way up to $45 or $50, that's the squeeze. So the trap here is then you have the echo chamber that these these communities have built, like Superstock and the likes, and they are the ones that came to the party late, and they believe that this is going to continue. Now, I could be totally wrong, but I've been around long enough to see a short squeeze and be able to recognize it when I see it, and that those already achieved massive gains. And my warning to those people is look at the history of squeezes, and most notably Volkswagen, and you'll see what these stocks have done and where they've moved to. But people running around talking about AMC at 10,000 a share, or even 100,000, which was so ridiculous, or GameStop to the moon at 10,000. This is ridiculous. I mean, if you run the numbers on this stuff, there's not enough money in the market to justify those numbers.
Yeah.
So that's a big trap for me, and that's that I want people to understand.
Yeah, I think you've seen a lot of those folks come and go already.
They're out of money.
Yeah, they've blown their accounts. Yeah, I'm really a very cautious trader. I don't have a lot of money in there, but yeah, I kind of got in on this. I started just before COVID. I started with Cash App, and then I got Robinhood, and then now I'm still using Robinhood, but I have an IRA.
Get off.
I know. Well, I took half of it and I moved it to an IRA, and so I'm kind of like more long on the IRA. And I just find Robinhood, it's not an endorsement, but I just find their interfacing so pleasant. It's just so easy to quickly look up a stock. Now, if I want to go properly charted out, I can go to my IRA. But it's just so easy to use. So it's hard not to keep something in there. Anyway,
it's interesting. I have to interrupt here. It's interesting that you're saying that it's just so pleasing, because it's designed, like so many social media apps, to inject dopamine into your body and get your neurons spinning with confetti and all that crap. And we talk about this all the time on the podcast, that if something is free, you are the product, and you have to be aware of that. I have no problem paying commissions on E-Trade, which I do have to pay from time to time for options, knowing that when I go to sell, I'm never going to run into this where'd the sell button go, So that's my other big caveat to people that are trading on these platforms is, be aware that if the product is free, then you are the product.
Yeah, I agree. There might be a day I move completely off of it. If somebody can make an interface that's at least almost as good, I'll make that my swing trading account. But for now, it's like the best of both worlds, where it's like an easy little mobile app where I can just kind of quickly jump in and out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started trading just before, and it was a nice bull market, and then it just went bananas, and then if pretty much anything you bought at the bottom was gonna double.
Yeah.
And so that was a nice time. So all these people got in, and they thought they were geniuses like myself.
Me too.
And we were just broken clocks. Now, my saving grace is my patience. I've got the diamond hands. I do not sell at a loss. I know that some people advocate like Howie. To me, it's a goofy logic to save money off taxes by selling a loss. But if you want to free up money because you're sure you can make it back on a better trade, I get that. I just feel like you got to be very good at what you do. Otherwise, you compound your losses. And so far, I'm still a little bit up altogether from what I've put in across all my accounts. And whereas a lot of people have completely blown their accounts, I know plenty of people that have blown their accounts.
Yeah. And I think that goes to show you that a lot of people don't understand modern portfolio management and specifically the importance of cash as part of your portfolio. And you're seeing that now with so many people that are being like, "Oh, I'd love to buy this dip," but they've already blown their cash.
I've
So
been
they
there.
can't,
I've
yeah,
been there in
we
this
all
market.
we all
Like,
have.
but I've managed to wait. Something comes up, I sell that profit, then I have that powder, and then I keep it going. And I'm just right now, I'm just trying to dig out.
Yeah. Well, I will say that one of the best things that ever happened to me was I had a lawsuit that I was dealing with at the time. I was a plaintiff in, and I was suing somebody for a copyright infringement, and I ultimately settled out of court. But during that process, I wasn't able to quote buy the dip unquote, and I know I would have multiple times, and then seeing what we've seen, especially with the Nasdaq losing over 30% of its value since February, I know I would have been heavy underwater with a bunch of names I was convinced were buys. And I didn't have the money to buy it because I was dealing with something else. So in a way, I kind of got lucky in that regard.
Well, yes, it's good. It's interesting how that can happen.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you had your 401k
Yep.
and you had a job,
Yep.
and these days you're totally self-employed
Correct.
and you are, I mean, that's great, man. I mean, like, it's, you probably tempered your expectations out of the entertainment industry and what you'll get out of it. And that's completely fair and mature, and nothing wrong with saying that's just where it's at. It's, because there's a million, you probably see how many incredibly talented people you've met in your life by now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got lucky in the sense that 2008 was when I started my company, and it was, of course, due to the financial collapse. And I did have a job at the time, and they asked for mandatory layoff or voluntary layoffs, and I was the first one to raise my hand. And what's that old saying about necessity is the mother of all invention?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that correct?
It's either that or Frank Zappa.
Yeah. So I think that's what happened to me. And I realized that I had to create something. And I started, literally posting ads on Craigslist. And that's how I was able to get work. And then I was able to evolve it into my own thing. And I remember, and I've spoken about this many times. I'd always worked for somebody, and I always had that paycheck, and I always had health insurance, and I always had a 401k. And I lost that comfort that I was used to. And there were many nights when I couldn't sleep. There were many months where I could barely pay my bills. And then one day I just woke up and reminded myself the work will come, and you just have to accept that being in limbo is not going to last forever if you work hard. And then I stopped worrying about it, and I haven't looked back. The flip side is that when you are self-employed, you don't have a boss. You don't have the luxury of, everything taken care of for you as long as you clock in from 9 to 5. But the reality is that your customers are your boss, and you need to answer the phone because work begets work. And I learned that very early on. And I went out of my way to chase down every lead that contacted me. So that's the one thing I will say when it comes to self-employment is that if you don't have the discipline, you're never going to succeed.
Yeah, you're making me think of my situation right now in my life. I've been, yeah, held gear. Most people that would watch this channel would know I'm doing this fashion company now, and it's nonstop. This is what I'm going to have to really push the hardest on at this point, because you can't half-ass a lot of things and expect results. There's some things you can chip away at. Like I enjoy just chipping away at the live stream. I'm not expecting to become a live stream star very quickly, but I do believe if I push hard on sales, I can push sales quickly. Becoming a live stream star is a little bit more of a, you know, not that I even want that. Like I just kind of want a comfortable.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. If you're in it for stardom, you're in it for the wrong reasons. I definitely have no aspirations for stardom. Ultimately, what I want is to continue to be self-employed, chase my art and my passion, which is stand up, and respect for my peers. That's always been my number one goal. I shouldn't say always. When I was young, I had, stars in my eyes. But then you get in the grind long enough, and that to just be a working comic or a working actor is an accomplishment in itself. And that's the goal. So I'm still working on that goal. But I love being self-employed. I sleep till 11:30 every day. I also choose to work late, but that's also because I've got a comic's internal clock, and I'm used to being out till 2 or 3 in the morning. But there is something to be said for that I've set my own hours for 15 years and haven't had to clock in, and certainly haven't had to go get a coach and counsel or a review because a mystery shopper came in. It's nice not having to deal with that corporate fucking garbage.
Oh God.
You lose the security, but you gain the independence and the freedom.
I threw away the security by age 20. I said, fuck it. I burned it and I never looked back. And it's been living like I'm living without ever landing. There's a song by Devendra Banhart that's been giving me a lot of comfort in my broken heart the last few months. Had some girl issues, right? But there's this beautiful song he wrote, which I'm going to say, if you could say it in 2 phrases, live or love. His song is called Love Without Ever Landing, right? Because you're trying to fall in love, right? Love like falling without ever landing. That's it. Just free floating all the time. You're always falling in love constantly, right?
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. But that's how we should live too. And when you take that step as a self-employed person, whether you want to be a comedian or an actor, when you take that step and you give that first seed of like, this is something, like, even if you're successful, you get money going in, you're living without ever landing. You're never landing it. You always have to keep it up and earn it, because you're choosing not to be a fucking cuck. You're choosing not to be somebody's stepping stone. You're choosing to, and by doing that, hopefully you do it in a way where you uplift people. Because if you do that, then you can really create a lot of power for yourself and other people. But I think a lot of people just step on others, and then I think that's a failure too. It's a very unstable way. But it's hard not to. Your ego gets pumped. You start trying to do these things. You sort of, in a way, have to talk your ego into it. I don't know. It's a very difficult balance to pull it off.
You just reminded me of a song lyric from a Drive By Trucker song, and the line is, it's from 72. This highway's mean. I don't know if you know them or not.
Heard of the band, but I never listened to them.
The line is, "You're always running from a heart, or a heart that you got to break." And that's, to me, is kind of like what the nature of life is. You're going to get stung, and you're going to have to sting people. And that's the way it works.
Yeah. So, yep. It's become a theme in the heart on this show, because I've become a more heartfelt person. Become a nicer person, but more heartfelt, like in the sense of what I really do believe, that if you follow your heart, you are doing exactly what you are purposed for. And in a sense, it's not your choice. We get into this thing where we believe we can construct our whole lives through our heads. And we do that by saying we're going to get this degree, and in 10 years I'm going to be in this position. And most people don't get there. Even if it's a practical plan, most people don't get there because you're sold a bill of goods, a false bill of goods on the degree, and then the jobs are not actually matching the number of people with the degree. So most people, even taking a practical route, don't get there, and it's very frustrating. So you're always living without ever landing, but some people really believe there's a landing point, and there isn't.
Yeah.
So you got to invest in yourself, right, Chris?
You have to invest in yourself, and you have to drop nice cliches every now and then, like the journey is the destination.
Yeah.
Or is it the destination is the journey? I can't even recall. It's too early for me.
The journey is the destination. I'll take it.
I'm only on my second cup of coffee.
The process. Okay, so you're an artist.
Yeah.
You have a process that you go about in your life.
Yeah.
Whether it's the way that you interact with your cats every day. Your process is very personal. So you can be good to go when you get on that stage, right? Or you get onto the podcast.
Yeah.
The process. Art, it's not limited to artists. Everybody needs to find their process.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely have a process for both things, whether it's starting with a premise and fleshing out a joke to the memorization part before I put it up on its feet, to the listening to the product and then reshaping it and putting it back up. If we want to talk about comedy, to a podcast where I take my time and outline show notes and make sure I communicate them as succinctly as possible. Whatever it is. Yeah, the process is definitely there. The process is a lonely place, though, especially when it comes to comedy. The hardest thing, I think, for any comic is to keep creating, because we're addicted to laughs and we're addicted to the feeling that it gives us when we do well, which is very hard to do in this medium. And the trap is you create your material and you get that feeling, that high, and then you say, well, I already have what I need. I don't need to keep creating. And I've certainly been guilty of it many times. And it's like, and a lot of it is circumstance. You work your ass off to get into a new location and your instinct says, well, I want to work on this new material, but the reality is, as a professional, I need to do my best work, which I already know works, so I can get booked to come back here. So that's one of the hardest things that I deal with when it comes to stand-up. So,
yeah, and I think it's more of an industry town in LA. Easier to offend your audience, stuff like that. I mean, it was always the industry town, but you had rebel places like, the store was I never even got to go there, man, before all this, dude. It really bums me out. I never stepped in there. I signed up to one open mic. They didn't put me on, and that was it. I never got to even go see a show there. So I think after not making that list, I ran over to Flappers. That's the cool thing about LA. You could pretty much do a mic every day if you're willing to drive, 40 square miles.
You could do 3 or 4 a night. And in my early mid 20s and 30s, that's what I did. I would go hit 3 or 4 spots a night. I would say that's a little bit of an exaggeration. I'd say it's more like 2 to 3, but yeah, you could jam out to, Woodland Hills, be back in Santa Monica, and then hit Hollywood. So those places are always there. And that exists in New York as well. But I think those are the 2 cities where it's probably the most effective way to do that kind of stuff, especially if you want to chase comedy.
What was so rad about Portland at that time, this was like 2010 to 13 that I was active, was that there was a mic every night or more than one. and if not a mic, a showcase. So there was a lot of opportunities for people to get on a few more minutes somewhere and be new and bomb, and it was okay because the rest of the people were going to carry it. And it was just a very special. It's rare to get that in a small market like that,
Yeah.
and it was very safe to do whatever you wanted, whatever you could say. It was pretty much okay. It was very hard to offend anybody back then. Um, I don't know what towns like that. It's probably going to be like, hopefully Austin's like that now still. Hopefully, I'd like to get out in Philly more, check it out more, but I just very busy. I don't intend to get on the mic. How often do you do an open mic? How often do you get on an open
Me
mic? Yeah.
all the time. At least probably once a week. I'll do an open mic.
Okay. You're not doing it like when you're new, when you got to go 3, 5 nights a week.
No. I'm specifically saying open mics as opposed to book shows. So probably getting up right now 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
But I would say one of those is probably an open mic or a new room that I haven't been to.
Oh, you still
So,
finding new spots?
oh God, yeah. Especially since I moved down to Orange County,
Yeah,
Long
right.
Beach, which is right on the border. But there's a you know, whole new world down here that I never even knew about. So yeah, and I mean, I'd rather go drive 5 minutes away and do 10 minutes to one or two people than drive up to Hollywood and take an hour and a half and do the same situation. So
Yeah, well,
the
yeah.
day you're above open mics is the day you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, you can't be.
Yeah.
You can't be. Although I think if you're working so much that it's with so many artists, all kinds, if you get into your niche and you have enough people that never tell you you're doing anything wrong, or I don't know, it's just easy to get cornered, to corner yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just in life, man. I mean, into your job, into your act. I don't know. Into like the Matrix, I think I'm starting to think that the Matrix is really all just about our own thought complexes. And it's not even about transhumanism or transgenderism or transams. It's a, it's about to me the Matrix we all need to break from is the ones that we create ourselves in our brain, in our
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Very self-limiting beliefs is one term that people use a lot these days that I like. Self-limiting beliefs. But I think most beliefs are limiting. But a belief can also bring you to a new reality. Like if you believe in something long enough and you go for it, you can manifest it. It becomes real, like starting a business, becoming an actor, whatnot.
Yeah.
So invest in yourself. Is that why I called it?
Yeah. Keep in mind, though, in the performing arts, you're still chasing one unknown thing that you have no control over, and that is luck. And I've seen it multiple times in my life. There's people that have been in the right room at the right time with an inferior amount of talent, and they've managed to make it, whether they're an actor, whether they're a comedian, whether a musician, and that's still always going to exist. So that's why I always tell myself the most important thing I need to feel good about what I'm doing is respect from my peers, because they are the ones in the background that constantly are seeing you showcase your work. So at the end of the day, that's what matters most to me. Shit, did I lose you?
God, it's from a terrible frozen frame.
Oh, shit. Are you back?
Kept the audio as I heard it. But yeah, too bad it was a very bad frozen frame. We're getting to the end, so not a bad time to, we're getting to the hour, which is where I like to end it. There's the cat. We can't not have a cat appearance.
There's Mom.
Um,
She might show you her butthole. Watch out.
How do I keep a street cat? I have a street cat that I showed great love to when he was a little kitten and he was fresh on the street, and I kept him for the winter, but he was always free to come in and out. And a lot of people don't like to do that, but
Yeah.
that's how I deal with cats. They're
Yeah.
free to go. And he is yet to decide to actually stay, but he still comes over. What do I have to do to make him want to stay, Chris? What do I got to do?
Here's the answer. You don't have any control over the situation.
Right.
I've been dealing this for 6 months with my cat. Woodrow Wilson 9/11 was not an inside job. Saki, we landed on the moon. Rothschild. This cat showed up on my door. Was clearly a street cat. It had been in a fight. It was injured. I went and took care of it. Took it to the vet. Spent a bunch of money. And I think by doing that, I assumed that I owned the cat now. And that wasn't the case. So I left him in my house because my other two, Mom and Sweeters, are indoor cats. And I adopted them. And one of the conditions of the adoption is that I would not let them outside. So I assumed that's what was going to happen with my new cat, and he wouldn't have it. He constantly urinated on, thankfully, my wood floors, not my carpeted rooms. And I was battling with him, and he would literally walk up to me while I was, cooking on a countertop and look at me and then pee right all over the countertop. So one day I gave up and I said, I'm letting this cat go out into the wild. If it returns, it returns. If not, it's okay. And then we established a relationship, which is I'm here to provide food for him, and he's here to provide love and comfort for me on his terms. And a lot of that time, that means I don't see him for 2 to 3 days. He's like a John. He comes in and shaves and showers and then disappears for 3 days. And I got to be okay with that. So that's our relationship. So I don't force anything.
Yeah, I keep some cat treats. He doesn't even seem to want very much food. He just seems to want to come here to chill. Seems to get fed otherwise, and just likes a little treat and likes to have a nice place to chill.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit allergic to cats, so I've always had an issue with cats. Plus, I have an issue with indoor cats. I really like them living out in the world, but I would think that they would I've never had a cat that didn't want to at least come to the same place to eat every day and not mix it up around but I think if they're raised in the street, that's home to them.
Yeah.
If that's where they're born.
Yeah. And that's what I quickly learned. You can't domesticate a cat that's already had its entire life lived out on the streets. So.
The first thing I did was build a little box house for him, but when I moved the box house, he never used it again. It's like, no, I like it where it was.
Yeah. Cats are territorial like that.
I think he might have a point about rain getting on it. Although it was shelter, it was like maybe too much splashback, but whatever. Now it's a package house. Everybody needs a package house now.
Have you thought about a catio?
What is that? A cat patio?
Yeah.
Because it could have been a cat radio.
Yeah. It's a portmanteau. I mean, it's a patio, where the cat could go in and out, but not fully out or fully in. So it's something you could consider if you have a place where you could do that, where it would feel safe. I wouldn't do that because I live in Long Beach. I'm not going to let anybody I'm not going to let anybody have the opportunity to get into my house through, a 1-by-1 cat door. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to invest in that just yet, but we'll see. Maybe we should actually go into business together doing cat radio and pipe a signal into all these cat patios that attract them, and as well as little cat. We need cat podcasts. We need something to entertain them so they don't go ripping up our homes when we're out of town.
I've just accepted it. It's one of those things in life where I just realize I have to buy new furniture every 5 years.
I have to do that anyway, just because I piss my. I don't.
Yeah, it's either that or you go out and buy those cat claws covers, but that's a lot of work.
Grandma time, grandma life.
Yeah, or you walk around and you've got plastic all over your furniture that eventually turns yellow, and nah.
All right. I think we've done a pretty good show. How do you feel about it? You good
I
to
feel
go?
good. Do you feel
Okay.
good?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm going to take you out of the stream, but you don't have to go anywhere. We
Okay.
can talk for a second if you want.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much for coming today, Chris. I had a good time.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Groovy. Find at Chris Neff right here on this Twitter feed and on Cash Daddies. All right.
Thanks for
Peace,
having
dude.
me. All right.
Whoop. All right. So that's the end of this one. Don't you like it? Just sharp at 1 hour. It's nice because then you know it's over, and it leaves us wanting a little more. So hopefully we'll have Chris back some other time. Those of you who stayed and those of you who didn't, I still love you both. And just make sure you go out there in life living without ever landing and in love. Peace.